I started meditating about 30 years ago. I learned my first meditation techniques from my first martial arts teacher. So the single-pointed mind meditation technique is a very powerful concentration technique for meditation. And it involves concentrating on particular chakras. And the chakras are energy centers in our energy body. Not only do you develop concentration and the ability to hold your mind still, but once you become adept at this particular meditation technique on the chakras, you can raise the Kundalini energy. And the Kundalini energy is a very powerful energy of transformation.
And here we are, back with day 23 of the 30 days to raise your frequency. It's official, by any standard. So, we're back again to meditate. What are we doing? What are we doing with ourselves here? What is this meditation stuff really all about? I mean, it sounds cool and all, but why should I bother? Why should I bother to meditate? Why should I bother to do anything, right? Let's ponder on that thought for a moment. Hello, my viewers. Welcome. We are on day 23 of the 30 days to raise your frequency. If you're new to the group, I'm Rob, your humble admin. Started the group back in 2016 as a way to promote meditation, as a way to inspire and motivate you to meditate. I've been meditating for about 30 years. Started back when I was a kid in martial arts class. Before class, we would meditate. And I learned a few different meditation techniques from my martial arts teacher. A few years later, I came across a meditation master. Ooh. And that's where I learned the technique that I'm about to show you today. This technique is based on what's called single-pointed mind concentration, which is a very important prerequisite that most people leave out in their meditation training. So this is great for beginners. This is great for if you're new to meditation. This is great for intermediates. If you've been meditating for years, this is great for advanced meditators. But what it really focuses on is if you're struggling with silencing the mind, if you have a difficult time to turn off that mental chatter, if you're looking for stillness. You know, what is stillness? I mean, can you really get still? How you doing, Ashley? How's everything over in the UK? You know, what is stillness? Is it even possible? You know, I've heard people say that you can't become still. There's always something moving. The molecules are moving, man. The atoms are spinning. Stillness is just a farce. Well, that's because we're not trying to still our atoms. We're not trying to still our molecules when we meditate. We're not even trying to, I mean, obviously, the heart's going to keep beating. Blood's going to keep flowing. But that's not what's interfering with our happiness. You know, I want my heart to keep beating. I want my blood to keep flowing. What's interfering with the happiness is the overabundance of unnecessary mental chatter. This unnecessary mental chatter, otherwise known as your inner narrator. You know when you go to the movies and you see that one scene and it's being narrated by a voiceover. Oftentimes our lives can become just like that. Without us even trying, there's this inner narrator that's just constantly describing the scene. You know, you're doing something completely unrelated, and all of a sudden this inner narrator comes on and starts to describe everything. That can happen. Or like what just happened to me. I go downstairs to get a light bulb and I hear Justin Bieber on YouTube, and now it's like stuck in my head. You know, it's amazing how quickly our minds can pick up on our environmental input. And so this is both a blessing and a curse, because obviously there are certain things that we'd love to absorb quickly, and then there are other things that we prefer to just let go right through. So when you're working with the mind, we have to become aware that the mind is like water. It picks up everything around it. It reflects everything around it. And it takes the shape of whatever container that you put it in. This is a metaphor that my teacher used to use all the time. The mind is like water. It takes the form of whatever shape you put it in. You put water into a round bowl, it assumes the round bowl. You put it into a square container, it assumes the shape of a square container. And to know this is to know that your mind has a shape. The shape has been influenced by your life. The shape has been influenced by your environment, your upbringing, what I call your conditioning. So your mind has taken a shape. And the good news is that we can put it into another form and reshape it. Reshaping over and over again our mind will allow it to be not stuck in a particular shape. What is a shape? Well, as I've discussed here on the videos with you guys before, shape equals frequency. Geometry equals frequency. And you can have a particular shape that is not necessarily conducive to a high frequency. You can have a perfect shape that is of the highest frequency. Let me explain. I drew a couple things on a piece of paper before. Imagine if the shape, you're looking at this shape. What kind of frequency do you think this shape is emitting? This blob, this amorphous blob. No particular shape. And then you have a perfect triangle. Well, as perfect as I could draw it freehand, right? Obviously, the frequency emitted by the triangle, the equilateral perfect triangle, 120 degrees on each angle here. Is that 120? Let's see. Anyway. Yeah. Let's see. If 90 is a square, and okay, so we're going with the angle 90 is here and 120 is here. So okay. Well, anyway, regardless, what we're trying to do with our meditation technique is reshape our mind so that it is a more evolved, refined, higher form, a frequency of a higher form. So normally when we look at the mind, let's say we were able to take a photograph of somebody's mind, it would probably look kind of like a buzzing beehive, with just all these thoughts buzzing around. And this has a certain shape. Now, when we seek to still the mind, when we seek to bring the mind to a single point in single-pointed mind meditation techniques, we are reshaping the mind. Is your mind out of shape? You know, you got to get that six-pack for the mind. And we do this by exercise. Exercise of the body produces results. Exercise of the mind produces results. It's no different. It's very similar. Because the mind is another body. And just like our physical bodies can become out of shape if we don't exercise them, if we don't eat the right foods. So you have two things going on here. You've got input, food. You've got exercise, strengthening the body, cardio, whatever it might be. So the mind is very similar. The mind has an input of Justin Bieber songs, or it has an input of beautiful meditation music. Now, which one is going to leave you with a higher frequency? Well, if you really like Justin Bieber, well then chances are the Justin Bieber song might, but chances are it won't. Usually pop tunes are very repetitious, and they kind of leave you in some sort of a matrix, like a fantasy land. Whereas, let's say like Bach or Mozart or Beethoven or your favorite composer, you listen to some of that, and, well, your IQ increases. This has been tested. This has been verified that when you listen to certain classical music before a test, you score higher scores. So this is a case of the fact that what you input into your mind affects the shape of your mind. The shape of your mind is determined by how you hold your mind. So it's very similar to posture. How I hold my body when I meditate. With a good posture, back straight, affects the frequency of my physical body, which in turn affects the frequency of my energy, affects the frequency of my mind. So very similarly, when we hold the mind in a posture, which is what we're doing here, when we do the single-pointed mind concentration technique, you're actually holding your mind in a posture by struggling. And it is sometimes a struggle. Trust me, it's a struggle for me too. Even though I've been doing this technique since 1992, it's still a struggle. Because the mind is like a herd of wild horses that just wants to go. It's very difficult to rein it in. But just merely trying affects our mind. Just trying a little bit will give you a little bit of change. Now, so when we hold our mind in a particular posture, it raises the frequency. It's like holding your mind in a perfect shape. Again, I love to break out the pyramid. Pyramid is a four-sided object. So when you can hold your mind in a particular shape, it immediately alters the frequency. And then when you can hold it in that shape, even though it wants to go back to that amorphous blob that I demonstrated here earlier, we have to keep pulling it back into shape, keep pulling it back into shape. Every time we pull it back into shape, it's like a repetition. We get stronger. The mind gets in shape. And this carries over. Your mind becomes a fit and sexy thing, And, who doesn't love to look at fit and sexy things? I mean, we love images. Images represent something to us. Form represents something to our minds. When we see something that is attractive, when we see something that is symmetrical, it's an indicator of beauty. And this has been studied with people's faces. People's faces that have a certain symmetry to them are noted as being more attractive than people's faces who are asymmetrical. Very similar to the body. In bodybuilding, one of the criteria for judgment is on your symmetry. How well balanced is the left and right side? Are you symmetrical? Is the right arm bigger than the left? Well, maybe you should take a break from that right arm for a while. Is your left quad not as developed as your right quad? Etc., etc. So, the visual cue, we can see symmetry. We automatically know, without even thinking, that something is perfect or not, or as close to perfection as we can get it. Which is why if you're an artist, if you're someone who has an eye, you can see imperfections, very easily. Like right now I'm staring at my yantra and it's a little bit cockeyed. So I'm going to fix it. So when we look out and we see something, we automatically know whether or not there is symmetry in that image. So very similarly, we can create symmetry and perfection within the mind by holding it as perfectly as we can on a single point. The single-pointed mind concentration technique is the exercise that will develop the mind and get it back into shape. Now, what is the perfect shape of the mind? Let's ponder on that for a moment. I'm not one to just willy-nilly rattle off quick answers as if I know everything. I want to include you guys in the process of, not thinking but contemplating. So what would be the perfect shape of the mind? Well, when I think about that, or when I contemplate it, I would say the perfect shape of the mind would be no mind. No mind whatsoever. Because if there is any particular shape, it's a limitation. Because what is shape? Form. What is form? All form is the masculine principle of creation. Form evolves, it changes. But the essence, which is, you could call it light, you could call it energy, you could call it consciousness, love, if you're one of those types of people, you can call it whatever you want to call it. The essence always remains the same. So what is the essence of the mind that is eternal? The eternal principle that I discuss here is consciousness. So if the mind is in any shape, any particular shape, then there is a modification. Therefore, there is a one step removed from reality. So the goal with meditation is really to remove all obstacles to reality. And what is reality? Well, I guess that's for us meditators to find out. Now, of course, there are many different philosophies, there's many different practices, there's many different I guess you could call them religions that discuss reality. What is reality? Well, the highest reality we usually think of as God, right? We have this concept of God or the divine. In Buddhism they call it nirvana. In Hinduism, Brahma. There are many different names for reality. But I'm a practical person. I don't like to believe anything without first passing it through my own experience to see if it's real or not. To see if it passes through my own discrimination, passes through my own filters. And from our own experience, what is the most real? Well, obviously there's certain criteria to reality that we need to talk about. If something is the most real, well, it would be eternal, meaning it would never change. It would always exist. It would have always existed, will always exist. Now, of course, as finite perceivers, as human beings, we have a finite body, not going to last forever. This current form will change and then dissolve. Well, so then how can we know what is eternal or not? We can't. We can only kind of know what's just around a long time. So, for example, we can look at things like the earth, the sun, the moon. Things that we know have been around a long time and will be around for a much longer time than we'll be around for. We can look towards these things. This is a clue. We can look towards the constants in life. What are constants? What is everywhere that doesn't change? One of the things I looked at when I was looking for the truth, when I was looking for reality, when I was looking for, I guess you could call God, what are these constants in life? One of the main things that I discovered was that geometry is a constant. You see it everywhere in creation. There's a template that all form comes into creation. And when I do this, it's got to be true because the hand motion. All form comes through geometry. Of course, there's something called sacred geometry, which will explain to you creation. And if you look at nature is a perfect example of geometry in action. The Fibonacci sequence, the golden mean spiral, and all of these really cool things. But when we go beyond that, there's got to be something, because obviously a triangle is not God, a square is not God, a spiral is not God. These are just organized, these are just forms that are organizing within nature. We can call everything nature. And I mean, even this Bluetooth speaker is part of nature, I guess. Although, it's very far removed from nature. Well, I guess what we consider nature is anything that's not man-made. But are human beings man-made? Well, we make children, but did we really do anything about it? Well, I mean, there was that one night. But besides that, it sort of just happens automatically. It's amazing. It's like a seed. When you plant a seed, it just grows into the beautiful flower or the plant or the tree. But where is that tree? Where is that plant? Where is the blueprint for it to grow into that thing or yield that fruit? It's amazing. It's a miracle. And then the cycle just continues and continues, right? It's a cycle. So all these things change. But there's something that is unchanged. There is something that never changes, even in our own experience, that we can verify for ourselves. And you know what? I'm just going to come out and tell you what that is. Can you guess? That's right. You guessed it. See, you're so smart. You must be meditating. Well, what is that thing, huh? Somebody type it in. Don't worry. Just type it in. Ready? Let's see. Nobody? Alright, I'll just tell you. It's consciousness. It's the one thing, or it's just the isness that is behind all the things. And if you think about it, or not think about it in this case, why is consciousness the unchanging reality? Because we can verify that through our own experience. Everything else is belief. and you can, do whatever you want. But I'd rather verify it through my own experience, or at least, listen to somebody that I feel knows what they're talking about. This is why we seek spiritual teachers. This is why we seek enlightened beings, because there's just something that says, oh, this guy probably knows what he's talking about. I'm going to listen for a while, and if he starts, not making sense, then I'll probably shut him off. But I'm going to kind of go with it for a while and see if it goes anywhere. Okay, so I've talked about this many times. What we come into when we're born in this world is we're bombarded with a environmental stimulus that gives us an identity, gives us a view of the world. It shapes our mind. Where our mind is put into a shape. Why are things shaped the way they are? Imagine if shapes were different. If we lived in a world of modern art, for example, houses might be shaped like spheres. Now, obviously, that might not be the most easy thing to build, which is probably why houses are based on the cube. Which is why, for practical reasons, roofs are slanted like a triangle so that rain rolls off. But besides that, when we're born into this world, our mind is instantly conditioned. Because we're born into a world that already thinks it knows what's up. Okay, so when we're born into the world, we're as pure consciousness as we can be. And you can see it in the baby's eyes. There's beautiful, bright light coming out of that baby's eyes. Just pure love, pure consciousness. There's no filter because it hasn't been conditioned yet. The mind is still not in a form. But it happens very quickly that we, as babies, we look around, if you remember. And we observe everybody around us and we go, okay, I guess this is what life is. I'm looking at my parents, I'm looking at my siblings if I have those, or people around me. I'm looking at this room. The room is square or whatever shape it is. There's colors, there's writing, there's words, there's a numerical system. There's all these things that already exist. And so I'm just going to kind of come into the world and just accept it all. Okay, well, this is the way it is, right? Yeah, so I'm going to speak this language. I'm going to take on this identity. I'm going to go with the name that you gave me. And I'm just going to kind of go with the flow. And then there's something that happens. And it doesn't happen to everybody, and we could philosophize on why, or ponder on why it doesn't happen to everybody. Of course, I have an idea as to why it doesn't happen to everybody, but at a certain age, you look around and you start to notice that these people around me, they just kind of go with the flow, maybe a little too much. They just kind of accept whatever they're given, maybe a little too much. And there starts to become an awareness that develops. There starts to become I guess you could say a consciousness that develops of, there's got to be more than this. Why is everybody just going along with the program? Don't they ever ask? Don't they ever ask or question the official narrative as to why things are the way they are, as to why you're telling me this is the way it is, and then I ask more questions and you just say this is the way it is? Yeah. It's, it is what it is. Meaning, this is the world we live in. You know that all worlds have been, well, not all, but there have been many cultures more advanced than ours that have talked about what world that we're really in here. This world is not the most evolved. And when I'm talking about world, I mean dimension. I'm talking about the fact that we're still killing each other in wars. It's difficult to find true happiness in life. There's a lot of things that are placebos. They placate us, they distract us from our own mortality. And then before you know it, you're too old and too far gone to even care anymore. Because you woke up a little too late and you realized that, well, gosh, I just was going along with the flow this whole time and I never really questioned it. But then there are others. Those of us who are interested in meditation. We're usually a different lot. We're usually folks that sit back and observe and go, a lot of these people just seem to be kind of unconscious. And it's not any fault of their own, but it just is the way it is. Now, of course, the explanation for that is described in Buddhism, in the science of yoga, the yogic sciences, as the reason is because of past lives. The reason is because, for some reason, and of course I don't claim to know all the answers, but this is the only one that makes sense to me, is that we all have a different amount of past lives. Now, again, don't ask me how souls are created or where we came from. I mean, there's lots of theories, there's lots of philosophies, and it doesn't necessarily matter where we came from or how old our soul is. But it's interesting to ponder on differences between people, because why are some people interested in meditation and why are some not? And of course, I believe it has something to do with reincarnation. It's talked about in the ancient texts that it has something to do with reincarnation. Enlightened teachers talk about the fact that it has something to do with reincarnation. So, I'm going to take a little bit of information on faith. The fact is that, usually if you're interested in meditation and self-discovery, enlightenment, liberation, going beyond the norm, altered states of consciousness, understanding beyond the veil, the matrix, that you've done this before. And there have been no good answers given up to this point. And so you seek spirituality, you seek answers, you seek something that's going to give you the answers or the experience that will, give you some understanding about this life, why we're here, why we like this. And as someone who's been meditating for a little while and has studied with teachers, I can tell you that none of that matters. What matters is that you're here now and that you're interested in meditation, because it doesn't really matter why things are the way they are, meaning like, how did we get here? Why are we... I think why, the important question of why is our mind like it is now? To reverse engineer why the mind is the way it is kind of an important pursuit, because it helps you understand how we got to this place to begin with. Again, it goes back to the baby. The baby is born into this world. Now, again, the baby has a seed form of karma that it takes into the world from past lives that isn't necessarily awake yet until later in life, because what does it take to awaken? A certain amount of energy, a certain amount of power, which comes when we age. Things mature. There's a reason why a flower blooms when it does. There's a reason why a tree bears fruit when it does. There's a reason why we develop our reproductive abilities when we do. Because the fact is that our Kundalini energy matures at a certain age. There's a certain timing to life, to creation. So, it's important to understand how we got in this dilemma. I think that is an important thing. The fact that our mind is a product of our environment, our conditioning, our education, our families, cultures, societies, beliefs, and this is what we're dealing with now, is a mind full of garbage. Now, you may be like, whoa, my mind is not full of garbage, Rob. All these things in my mind are very important, and that may be true to you. Absolutely, I understand. But when it comes to meditation, when it comes to becoming happy, then we need to get rid of everything in the mind. We need to remove all shapes from the mind, to go back to my original point. Because what we're doing in this meditation is we're holding the mind in a particular shape. We're holding the mind in a particular form to first get the mind into shape and then to throw out all shapes. The way that my teacher used to talk about it is, first, you want to clean the house. First, you want to build the perfect house, right? Perfect house, and perfectly mindful, every single nail, you're, immaculate. You keep it perfectly clean. And then you want to just burn that house down to the ground. So what does that metaphor truly mean? It means that in order to overcome the mind, when I talk about mind, I'm talking about like the contents of the mind initially, because it's the contents of the mind, the thoughts, the images, the beliefs, the theories, the philosophies that we all love to think we know what is. Knowledge is the biggest illusion out there. Now, of course, there's practical knowledge. Don't get me wrong. If I learn how to fix a car, then I can fix cars. And then if my car breaks down, I can fix it, and then I can drive. If I learn how to program software, I can create a computer program, and I can create software, and that software can run and they can perform a particular function. Yes, so those kinds of abilities have a relative reality within creation, don't get me wrong. But when it comes to meditation, well, what is the goal? It's to go beyond limitation. It's to go beyond mind. So first, we tidy up the mind. We get the house clean. We build the mind. We perfect it by holding it perfectly still, by doing these concentration exercises. But then, once we can do that, and we've refined, we've honed, we've sharpened, then we want to go beyond the mind. Because we want to go beyond limitation. As human beings, we have this innate drive in us to explore the unknown, the farthest regions of wherever we can journey into. We want to, I guess you could say, know what is beyond. We want to have that experience for ourselves. Now, if you're someone who just, is cool with believing stuff, that's fine. But chances are when you're meditating, there's different classes of meditators. There's people who are interested in just sort of overcoming their anxiety. And trust me, I know. I've got anxiety. I know how it feels. Usually people with anxiety are people that are very passionate people, and they just can't find a way to put their passion into a productive practice. And I know that's a lot of P's, but just trust me. So usually anxiety is just energy that's it's just not being put into action, a form. We have so much creativity, we have so much energy, and so much distraction. And so anyway, getting back to the point here, specifically the single pointed mind meditation. I can go on and on and on. And honestly, I'm probably boring you with my rant. So let's get to the meditation today. Let's get to work. 5 steps to stillness. Let's do it. We begin with breathing. Take a big deep breath. Now, if you're sitting in a chair, if you're sitting on the floor, make sure you have your back straight, good posture. I like to sit in a chair, it's much more comfortable for me. I like to sit at the edge of the chair. Now, if you've printed out your yantra, you've got it printed out and pasted or taped in front of you on your wall. If you don't have a yantra for the first step, you can just stare at me with a single pointed focus. Just stare right here at this point. Or you can listen to the music if you prefer. That's fine. I like the yantra because it gives my gives my eyes something to gaze upon. Now, focus on that yantra. Here we go. Single pointed focus. Forget about everything. Forget about yourself. The only thing that exists is that dot in the center of the yantra. Now we move to the navel chakra. Close your eyes gently and place the fingertip about an inch below the belly button. Press gently and feel the slight pressure. What we want to do is bring our attention to that area. Single-pointed attention, single-pointed mind means concentration on one thing. When the mind wanders, when the attention wanders, bring it back to the navel chakra and hold it there. We must use our willpower to hold it there. Don't let your mind wander. Simply feel that spot. Feel the energy there. Once you've locked in with your attention, you can remove the finger. Now, hold your attention at that spot. Hold it with intensity. Don't let it wander. Relax the energy, relax the body, but keep a good posture and bring all your awareness to that one point. Now bring your attention up to your heart chakra in the center of the chest. Place the fingers gently in the center of the chest and press lightly. Feel that feeling. This gives your attention a locale in order to go to. Simple as that. The chakras are in your energy body, so you want to feel the energy around this area. In the heart chakra, you should feel love, joy, happiness, bliss. If there's any energetic tension around that area, just try to break through, open up, and feel. Once you've locked in with your attention, remove the finger. Continue to hold your attention, you hold your awareness on feeling the spot. Try your hardest, do not let your mind wander. Now move your attention up to your third eye. Place your fingertip between the eyebrows and slightly above. Press very gently. Now that you've given your attention a place to go to, once you've locked on with your feelings, remove the finger. Sit still. As the energy increases, try not to get caught up in blinking, flinching, twitching. Hold your awareness on the third eye. Feel the energy there. Relax the forehead. Readjust your posture, make sure that your back is straight. Prepare your eternal posture, the posture that you can be in forever. Relaxed, yet good posture. Let go of all concentration. Let go of all tension, physically, energetically, mentally. Remain very still, yet perfectly aware. We're overcoming a lifetime of conditioning. We're overcoming lifetimes of conditioning, of habit, of tendency. The tendencies for our attention to be held in a certain shape. Just as our body is held in a certain shape. From the programming of the DNA, our mind has an etheric, energetic DNA. And this is what is carried over from previous lifetimes. It has a memory. Karma is memory. And memory affects shape. And this is why we practice. We have to practice letting go. We have to practice transcending whatever limitations arise. This is why we sit still, because it's an exercise, because our tendencies, all of our tendencies, suggest otherwise. All of our tendencies are prompting us to do, prompting us to move, to think. Thinking is just mental movement. Little by little, we overcome. We overcome the energetic contraction that we're constantly feeling. And so throughout the day, just take a moment and pause and remember this feeling. Remember this feeling of expansion, of serenity, of calm, of stillness. This stillness is powerful. The stillness will reverberate out through your being. And this is the process. So, there you go. Okay, my friend, thank you so much for joining me today in the guided meditation. And I hope you have a great one. We'll see you tomorrow on day 24.